Royal Duality, Tales for the Silent One. Chapter 7.
If Sirius were here, he would skip the next part of the tale. He'd brush over it and tell you that tales of the Fae are filled with chivalry and kindness beyond measure, deeds that will bring a tear to your eye and swiftly move along to the end. But I'm here to tell you that the reality of things is never so simple. Fairy tales are fine, but blindly accepting them as the truth, well, that only leads to despair.
Wow, that took an unexpected turn. Is it really that grim?
Oh, no. Nothing too sinister. My head would be on the chopping block otherwise, but what I'm about to tell you, keep it a secret from Siri, all right?
Ooh, bonus section. What's the extra stuff all about?
Things were not going to plan for the Sprite Knight Sam and Lycan Warren. I mentioned earlier that their relationship had never been put to the test. That was about to change. The Lycan had often boasted about his ability to track scents and smells, and volunteered himself to lead the way to find Oliver. To bolster his confidence and make him feel useful, Sam let him. However, as they traveled further into the castle, it became clear that Warren had been deceived. Or charmed. It's impossible to be sure. The pair ended up in the worst location imaginable, in the bowels of the castle with Ira, the vampiric spider deity. This was the worst-case scenario, not only because Ira had them both trapped with no sight of Oliver, but Warren's head was in a daze. He was becoming tempted by the offer to be free of his curse. Meanwhile, Christian found Sirius, but unfortunately for him, he found the evil High Cleric Blackheath as well. The three of them were all together in the miserable confines of Sirius's room. It was a dark and dreary place with prison bars, rusty chains, and one tiny window. The air was stale and damp, filled with dust.
Ugh, the stench of death draws near. Must be a descendant of the vulture school. I can only think of one person that label applies to. Christian. You didn't tell your merry band about your true father, did you? I knew him, you know. I'd even consider him an esteemed and competent man of the cloth.
All the more reason for me to never learn anything about him. Seems like he kept terrible company.
You're in no position to talk. King Dedrick is the very definition of terrible company.
I suppose Ira told you that, did she?
How dare you speak of the great deity so casually?
I am a Duke of Death now. Her made-up title means nothing to me.
Nonsense! A boy like you, he'd never give you any kind of rank.
Fine, think what you want. I don't care.
That arrogance of yours, it's just like him. Like father, like son.
Let Sirius go, Blackheath. It won't make up for your previous transgressions, but it would be a good place to start. If you have any sense of fair, you'll take this request seriously.
Making an ally of Sirius was a terrible error in judgment.
Oh, yes. Master Blackheath is correct. He always is, you know. There's no point in you even attempting to best him. Ugh.
Yeah, Sirius?
Your control is slipping. It won't last long now.
Master Blackheath can't be bested by an urchin like you.
Don't worry, Sirius. I can hear you. The real you.
Fearful that Christian was beginning to win Sirius over, the High Cleric shared Christian's well-guarded and dark secrets. Not only did he reveal that Christian's father was a vampiric High Cleric, but he also disclosed how and why Christian became a Duke of Death. Christian was the one who brought disease to the Evergreen Forest in the first place. As a descendant of the Vulture School, he had the power to bring pestilence to whatever and whomever he touched. But what would drive him to do such a terrible thing? Christian only wanted to help the Fey Prince and Princess, didn't he? Just before the Evergreen accident, the vampire Count Helmrick used his terrible mind-controlling abilities to force Christian to do the terrible deed. The poor boy was a mere child at the time and stood no chance against the Count. He forced Christian to destroy Evergreen Forest and hopefully put an end to the war in one decisive strike, thinking that it would break the Fae's morale and cause them to give up. Christian, unable to control his own actions, killed so many people that the King of Death himself took notice and dragged Christian into his servitude until the end of days. This revelation broke the dreamer. Sirius no longer knew which side Christian was on. The High Cleric continued to emotionally manipulate him. Unable to take the stress, he broke down and was paralyzed by fear. I'm sure you can see why Sirius might not mention that part to you. He doesn't go into too much detail about Sam and Warren either.
Yeah, I can see why. Doesn't exactly, fit with the tone. I get why he doesn't tell people, but why did you tell us?
I know everything that happened in that castle. I've heard it all from people who were there. But sometimes I listen to this story and I wonder, who is it meant for? So much is missing. The Fae Court has this habit of simplifying these kinds of stories for the masses, making it palatable and quaint, easy to understand and simplistic. Sirius's Fae-approved version makes the Fae entirely good and vampires entirely bad. It's entertaining enough and sounds accurate to those who don't question it too much, but I know, and you know, that's not how this world works. I wanted to tell at least one person what really happened, because I am sick to death of these caricatures.
I mean, it's pretty well known that the Fae are up themselves. I wasn't going to rate this story on historical accuracy.
Oh, well, that's a relief. You're smart enough to know the difference between the facts and the spin. But the problem is, Ranistar, that most people who hear this story don't know the difference. They think this is the whole truth. They don't think about anything other than what they're told.
You trying to change that attitude from the inside. Is that why you're a mage now? Part bard, part mage, part truth seeker. Guess you are a perfect man after all.
No, nothing like that. I was the son of the leader of the fire sprites in Evergreen Forest. We were the villains at first. We were blamed for that fire. And for years we were miserable because of it. Then Sirius and his friends came back, told the Fae Court what happened, and a shallow pardon was all we received. The people who made our lives hell quietly went about their business, pretending they weren't responsible for our downfall. Most elemental sprites have been able to blend back into Fae society fairly easily. But let me be clear, if I wasn't a splendidly charming bard and a vastly overqualified mage, I'd be displaced too. just like all the other fire sprites from Evergreen.
I didn't know that.
No one really does. People just walk around with their eyes closed to it. Good people make mistakes. Bad people try to redeem themselves. People are complicated.
What a load of old bollocks. I wasn't so bothered about it before, but now I'm just annoyed. Are you saying the vampires weren't that evil after all? Because if they weren't, I've been getting dodgy intel, and I'll be really pissed off about that.
Look, Sirius isn't a bad guy. Not at all. But he's telling a very summarized version of events. He does whatever King Louis, or rather, the Royal Fae Court, tells him to do. If he doesn't, he gets kicked back to Venmar, and that's even worse for him than being here. As for King Louis, like I said, good people make mistakes. Still, let's get back on track to the Fae-approved version of events. Sirius could come back any time now. He won't be happy if we're talking politics during story time. Whilst Christians struggled to accept that the truth had been revealed, things were beginning to gather pace with our valiant prince and princess. They had gone onward to meet the stoic and regretful vampire count. The throne room had barely been altered by the castle's inhabitants. I'm told that it looked just as it did when the Evergreen royal family ruled the forest. Well, aside from a large portrait of Count Helmrick's father, who looked nearly identical to Count Helmrick himself. The walls had splendid floral wallpaper and bright white pillars. The whole place felt light and welcoming. I remember that room myself, from when I was a kid. There were regal suits of armor at the side of the royal steps. At the top of the room stood the throne, which was little better than a normal chair. The previous King of Evergreen wasn't decadent. He was just a gentle soul and a good man.
Greetings, Princess Flowerberry and Prince Evergreen. Were there not others with you?
Huh? There were. We've gone our separate ways.
That is a strange phrase for mounting a rescue attempt. Do not mistake me for a fool. I know your thoughts and your intentions. You come here to distract me, but I assure you, it is pointless.
Count Helmrick, you know my true identity. You know the princess is here too. We are a match for you. It wouldn't be wise to underestimate us.
I am not here to exchange threats with you. My intention is to allow you to take Sirius and Oliver back to where they belong, and I, myself, surrender to you.
Do you think we're fools, Count Helmrick? You haven't released them before now, and I don't believe for 1 second that I strike fear in your heart.
I am in no position to free them, but I will allow you to do what you must to rescue them.
Not in a position to? Nonsense!
Count Helmrick, if you are in no position to free them, can you tell us why?
If you do not trust me, then that is your choice. I am no enemy of yours. If I was, your minds would be under my control already.
Don't pretend to be reasonable and then refuse to answer our questions.
I have something I must give you. I'll be back in a moment.
I should hope you're returning presently. This is suspicious. Louis, I'm worried.
I think he is trying to tell us something. If he is in no position to free them, then who else would have governance over this castle?
Vampires don't have kings or queens, but...
They do worship deities.
Well, he's back. Perfect timing. It was safe to say that this was not what the Fae had expected. This cryptic and strange encounter raised suspicion. Was Count Helmrick truly willing to let Oliver and company go? Was he really in control of the castle? Or was a darker power pulling the strings? They didn't have a lot of time left to find out.
Took you quite a while to get to this point. Maybe I am the better storyteller after all.
Oh, Sirius, you're back. You got me. I just kept getting sidetracked and talking to Ranistar about old gigs. I can't help it when a fan is in the room. This is why I should leave this kind of thing to you. This, obviously, isn't my forte.
Well, allow me to tell the rest of the tale. After all, that is what everyone came here for. But first, Ranistar, Silent One, and Xavier, the drinks are on me. I'm sorry for dashing off midway through. Here's compensation. It's a good vintage, I promise you.
Not bad. Not bad at all.
Is our dear bard staying until the end? I thought you might be leaving early.
Well, apparently I need to learn from the maestro. So, I'll just take some notes. Don't mind me. You don't have a problem. Do you, Silent One? I'll take that smile as an invitation to stay.
I'm sure it's music to Ranistar's ears. Sharing a room with you for any period of time makes him ecstatic. The Fae had the upper hand. Count Helmrick was ready to concede, but treachery was rife amongst the vampires of that castle, and it was about to cost them everything.